We have reports now from London and Moscow. First, CNN's Richard Blystone in London.
Chosen from the elite of British flyers, they were to have flown to Houston later this week to start intensive astronaut training. Squadron leader Nigel Wood was to be payload specialist for the launch of a British military communications satellite from the shuttle Columbia in June. Lieutenant Colonel Richard Pharamond is his backup man. The gap left by the disaster focuses on the European competitor to the shuttles in satellite launching, the Ariane rocket. Despite an Ariane blow-up last fall, it now stands a better chance of wooing British business.
But right now we can say that certainly the flight of the orbiter will be grounded for a long period. And as far as Arianespace is concerned, we shall try to help the space community to fulfill as the best possible the engagement.
A spokesman for the Ariane Consortium said, "We share this catastrophe with our American friends." The Europeans have learned a lot from the Americans, the spokesman said, including that the smallest thing can cause an accident.
And I'm reminded tonight of those words of Werner von Braun 19 years ago yesterday at the Apollo fire, when he reminded us all, he said, the public view of this is that you get a bunch of guys, train them up as astronauts, like the blue touch paper, they come back, you've got a bunch of heroes. It just reminds us all that we're not in the business of making shoes.
This is the message from the British astronauts. We are greatly saddened by the tragic loss of life at Kennedy Space Center, and the deepest sympathy is extended to the wives and families of the shuttle crew. Simple language and matter of fact, typical of the kind of people who risk their lives in space. Richard Blystone, CNN, London.
The Soviet people learned quickly of the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. TASS, the official news agency, reported the tragedy a half hour after it happened. Then the main evening television news show, Vremya, showed the liftoff and the explosion. That was less than 2 hours after it actually happened. The narrator used grave tones in describing the scene, tones usually used respectfully for obituaries of important officials here. He told his viewers, there are practically no chances that any of the crew members survive. He noted that the shuttle had no ejection systems for its crew. The viewers were also told that the purpose of the mission was to place a communications satellite and instruments to observe Halley's Comet in orbit. 2 unmanned Soviet spaceships will fly by Halley's Comet in early March and return close-up pictures of it, if they work properly. The Soviets have lost 4 cosmonauts in space accidents. One died when his spacecraft's parachute tangled during a landing in 1967. 3 others were killed at the completion of a 23-day flight in 1971. A valve went bad while they were re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. Soviet authorities minimized the chances of showing such disasters on television by rarely televising launches or landings live. They do that only on special occasions, such as when foreigners are aboard. In the past, the Soviets have criticized the space shuttle program for its military purposes, but none of that criticism was mentioned in the report on the explosion. Stuart Laurie, CNN, Moscow.
She was an excellent teacher, a good communicator, and a superb role model. Christa McAuliffe was to be the first civilian to orbit the Earth. She told reporters what made her reach for the stars.
The training will start in September.
Did you think that you were ever going to fail in any part of the testing?
No, that wasn't really part of the evaluation process. So even if I had gotten sick on it, I'd still be all right.
Were you surprised by any of the testing or anything? Did you think it was harder than...
The intensity of it, just lots and lots of things crammed into a week. I mean, we were just running from early in the morning till late at night.
Do you think that was part of the training or the testing?
Well, maybe, but I think they were also, they knew that we only had us for a short period of time. They were just trying to cram as much as possible so that we could really experience everything that we could in that short period of time.
Don said today you were going to take one of his pet frogs along on the flight. Is that going to be one of the pieces of the cargo?
Yes, we're going to put that frog right on the shuttle.
This is Scott?
This is Scott.
Scott, does the frog have a name yet?
Legal.
Legal the frog is going to go into space? That's part of the deal. Did NASA know about this?
I do have a personal compartment on board the shuttle. I can take some things along with me. Not big enough for any of you, but...
Actually, have you seen the inside? You must have seen the inside of one of these things.
Yeah.
A personal compartment. How comfortable is it?
It's probably about this big and about that wide, so that you can bring some things that you know, would like to bring. Yeah. T-shirts that you're going to wear and things for your family.
What kind of T-shirts are you going to wear?
Oh, I don't know. I'll have to get a good New Hampshire one.
Can you tell us about the camaraderie between you and the other 9 finalists?
Oh, it's just wonderful. It really is. I mean, we went through so much. All I can liken it to is having a small bunch of big kisses.
Christa, finally, what's it like?
Where's Kitty Bob?
She's resting.
Oh, she's resting? Oh, who's with her? Oh.
Now it's 20 seconds.
It's a long 20 seconds. Is this like a countdown?
Well, now it's not any minute. I don't know.
Dion, Christa is here with me now. She just got off the plane a while ago, and I know that you were chosen for this mission partly because of your disposition. You've been giggling since you got here. Tell me why, again, you've said it so many times, why is this so important to you, making this trip on the shuttle?
Well, it's important for a lot of reasons, but I think the most important thing is to humanize the space age to a point where everybody feels a part of it, and the students really connect with that. They're the wave of the future. They're the ones who are going to have to deal with the space stations and beyond, and I really hope and feel that it's part of the teaching profession to bring those new career opportunities. I know, it's wonderful.
Okay, all right, so how's it feel to be back in New Hampshire?
It feels great to be home. I am really delighted because I kept hearing about all of these wonderful things that people were doing while I was down in Washington, while I was down in Houston, and I couldn't share with that. You know, and Steve would tell me on the phone, and he'd say, you know, you got some letters, or, you know, people called, and I couldn't share with that, so I'm really glad I'm home.
How long are you going to be home for?
Well, hopefully I'll be home on and off for about a month, so I'll be able to spend some time in New Hampshire.
I got to ask you, when did you find out? Did you find out just before the announcement, or?
Yeah, we did. We asked as a group, we requested that we find out prior to going into the room. It was a small room. There were a lot of press there. We've invested an awful lot of emotion in these last 2 weeks, and we really felt that we needed to find out and compose ourselves before walking into the room. So we did know before we walked in.
What were your feelings when you found out?
Well, it was rather funny when we were talking about what was happening at home, and I was saying something to the effect that, you know, well, you know, when I'm not home, and I said my husband really relies on cornflakes and milk because that's kind of his staple. And Ann Bradley turned around and kind of, without missing a beat, she turned around and she said to me while the whole group was together, she said, I think you better buy some more cornflakes and milk.